Habits are such a tricky subject. It seems like everyone always wants quick and easy hacks for good habits. But to be honest, creating good habits takes intentionality and a little bit of discipline. So today we're exploring mindset shifts to set you up for success and how to integrate your habits into your routine for the new year. You ready? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to week 3 of the Define Your Goals challenge. You'll have to forgive me today if my voice sounds a little bit funny. I unfortunately got a cold over the holidays, so my voice is still recovering. But if this is your first week joining us, I would first encourage you to go back, watch week 1's video on goal setting and week 2's video on goal planning. You can also drop into the description box below and grab your free Notion goal planning template. You'll also get weekly emails with a few extra tidbits to go with the challenge. And so with that, let's talk habits. To help me out today, I'm going to bring in a classic book on habits, Atomic Habits. You may have seen this book floating around. Lots of people absolutely love it. I could honestly make a whole separate video on this book. I have lots of thoughts and opinions of my own, but today we're only going to talk about a small portion of this book. I do highly recommend that you guys check this book out and read it though. It has so much great information. I will link it for you down in the description box. In the book, James Clear describes a 4-step process to forming habits. It starts with a cue, which produces a craving, which triggers a response, and that ultimately leads to a reward. Today we are going to focus on our cues, which is essentially something that you can tie your habit to. An example for me is in the morning, I set the table for breakfast. That is my cue to grab my vitamins out of the cupboard and put them on the table so I don't forget to take them. Now, there's something else in this book that's talked about that I think is really easy to just glaze over and forget about, but it's also really important to mention it. And that's the idea of identity. If you want to create a new habit that sticks, you're going to have to be willing to change your identity. Now, that sounds really harsh, but here's an example. A habit that I want to adopt this year is to read daily, even if it's just a small amount. So instead of saying I'm trying to read more, I'm gonna say I'm a reader. By repeating that to myself, the natural consequence is that I am more likely to read because, hey, that's who I am, I'm a reader now. When I think of habits that I've been successful with, they include both cues that make sense to my situation and a strong identity in what it is that I'm choosing to do. In the example that I gave earlier with my vitamins, my cue is setting the table, but my identity is that I'm a nourished individual. Another example of a habit I have is cleaning the kitchen after dinner. My cue is that when we clean the table for dinner, I wash any dishes in the sink and clean the countertops. Lucky me, my husband usually helps. And my identity with that is someone who keeps a tidy home. And since doing that regularly, I rarely wake up to a dirty kitchen. Now, I do want to say that just because you choose a cue and create an identity for a habit does not mean that everything's gonna magically fall into place. Getting started on habits takes some discipline, and so much of the habit advice out there relies on idealized situations. If you're traveling or away from home, your cues are all probably messed up, which means your habits are also probably going to suffer during that time too. And that's okay, we are not striving for perfection here, but we are working to find a way to incorporate your habits into your daily routine so that when things go a little bit haywire, it's really easy to get back on track. I also don't subscribe to the whole 21 days to a habit thing. I think it takes way longer than that. And I'm not truly convinced that complex behaviors like this can actually become a non-conscious habit, but that's a discussion for another day. That's why the goal planner is built to track your habit for at least 2 months before it officially becomes a habit. This timetable feels a lot more solidified to me, but you are more than welcome to extend it or shorten it if you prefer. Speaking of the goal planner, if you have not yet added your habits, we are going to do that right now. If there are any habits that you want to add based on the goals that you set for this year, you can add them to the habits database right here. Mine are movement 6 times a week and reading. Then as you evaluate your habits, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, you can say that you're working on it. It's something that you've been working on for a month, you've been working on it for 2 months, or you have completed it and it's become a habit. I also want to note a neat little trick that you can do if you have the paid version of Notion that includes automations. You can add an automation here that when you start working on a habit, the status changes to your current focus, or when you complete a habit, the status is changed to finished. That way, the status changes automatically for you. So take a minute to pause this video and write down your habits. Now that we have written down our habits, we're going to want to find cues for them. I highly recommend time blocking an ideal schedule out so that you can see your routine. For larger habits, like for me, I have my movement habit, I want to make sure that I have included time in my schedule for workouts and walks. Even for smaller habits, this can be super helpful to actually see your routine so that you can find cues that make sense for your situation. I have a video all about how to build this time blocking schedule in Notion, along with why I choose to time block an ideal schedule instead of updating it weekly. So I will link that for you down below to check out. Now I am going to go through my routine that I've blocked out to help me find some cues that I could use to tie to my new habits. I've got my 2 habits, reading and daily movement, and looking at my schedule, I've blocked out some time for working out and walking in the evenings after work. So my cue is going to be that when I am finished with work for the day, I'm going to change my clothes into workout gear, do a workout, or take the dogs on a walk. Now, for my reading habit, I already do my morning check-in / journal in the morning, and so my cue is going to be once I finish that morning check-in, I will open my book and read a chapter. Now, I am literally writing these down next to my ideal schedule, so I have it saved somewhere that I can easily reference it. To be honest, finding a cue that works for you is going to be a little bit of trial and error. And next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about adjusting what isn't working for you. One thing I like to do to notice patterns of what is working and what is not working is track my habits daily. This is totally optional. For some people it works and others it doesn't. I personally get really bummed if I miss checking a box one day, so the way that mine is set up in Notion is a little bit different than usual. Let me give you a little peek. Here is my daily planning page where I do my morning and evening check-ins. This is where I track my habits, and while some are checkboxes, others are relational properties. And for example, with my wake up and my bedtime, I actually put the times in. I have a separate formula that will create a checkbox if I went to bed by 10:30 or I woke up by 6:30, but I don't actually see that until I evaluate my data, so I'm not necessarily feeling bad if I didn't hit the mark that day. And then when I do my weekly reset process, I do a little weekly review of my data where I can evaluate what I'm doing well on and what I'm not doing so hot on, which y'all, don't judge my habits. December was a crazy month for me. Now I also do this at the end of the month on a little bit bigger scale. There I actually update the status of my habits and I can see what I want to change going forward next month. If you love this system and want to adopt it for yourself, it is included in my productivity planner and my life planner, which I will link for you down below. But no matter what you choose to track your habits, I encourage you to also build a system that allows you to evaluate them weekly and monthly as well. So your week 3 challenge is to work through the process of finding cues for all of your habits and working them into your already existing routine. As a bonus, if you want to track your habits daily, find a system that you actually like to use that helps you track your habits and evaluate them on a regular basis. And with that, guys, you have made it through week 3 of the Define Your Goals Challenge. Next week is our final week where we're gonna be talking about how to evaluate your goal progress and adjust if things are just not quite feeling right. I can't wait to see you then, my friend. Until then, happy planning!